Hi, my name is T.S. Holden. I am a programmer from the Appalachians, and today I want to talk about Warframe's Syndicate grind problem. For those short on time, the thesis of this video is that for veteran players playing new content, the grind is a good thing. But for new players playing old content, it's not. And so, I propose that we should mitigate this problem with some subtle multipliers, which are applied to that content and are earned via collective gameplay. Let's get into the details. For context, Warframe is a free-to-play looter shooter, and a significant component of the game is ranking up in syndicates to unlock access to new gear, certain missions, and entire gameplay systems. For example, in order to use the Helminth system, which allows you to graft abilities from one Warframe to another, players need to reach rank 5 with the Intrati family. Players do this by running missions for that particular syndicate to gain standing with them, and then investing that standing and a few resources you gather along the way to rank up. Now, this is all well and good, but Digital Extremes has found themselves between a rock and a hard place. For veteran players, whenever DE adds a new syndicate, we tend to hyperfixate on that content, gold rushing to unlock the newest shinies. To slow us down and hopefully prevent burnout, DE puts limits in place, a daily standing cap. Once you reach that cap, you can still run missions for the syndicate, but you won't gain any standing until the next day. To be clear, in isolation, this cap isn't the syndicate grind problem. This is a design that, while annoying in the moment, is overall a good thing for the game and the mental health of the player base. The problem is that Warframe is not a new game. It's been getting updates for over a decade, and new players joining in today find themselves looking down the barrel of years of content that they need to grind through before getting to the new shinies that probably enticed them to install in the first place. Digital Extremes is highly motivated to shortcut these players to this new content, but at the same time, DE really doesn't want to undermine the investment of veterans and risk alienating their biggest advocates and patrons. So, how to deal with these contradictory needs, where we have to provide enough content to keep veterans occupied for weeks and weeks between updates, while not accumulating an overwhelming wall of grind for our new players? Well, the obvious but unpopular answer is to reduce the grind once a syndicate isn't the new hotness. Digital Extremes has done this before with quests on the critical path, cutting down resource costs and build timers, and every single time, there's a contingent of the player base who've already done the quest that feels their time was wasted. To my knowledge, these players are typically a small but unfortunately vocal minority, but it's a group that will grow and grow every time this happens, so this solution is something that DE really wants to avoid. So instead, here's my proposed solution, or a solution. This is not a small problem, and it's not going to be solved by a single change, but in my opinion, we can leverage some simple psychology to turn the problem around and avoid a lot of grief. What I propose is that rather than lowering requirements, we tweak multiple other variables in the equation to benefit the new players. Specifically, we should bump up the standing gained per mission, the daily standing cap, and the overall standing cap. Furthermore, all of these tweaks should be done in small increments to individual syndicates as a reward for a small community event, something along the scale of a Fomorian tactical alert. By framing this as a reward that veterans have earned for the community, we flip the problem around into being a positive, hopefully making it something that players are excited about instead of being upset over. Plus, it nets DE a little extra something to keep the veterans busy over the weekend. I know I would run a couple Cetus missions for the sake of my low MR friends, even though I maxed out that syndicate years ago. It's essentially the same trick that Blizzard pulled with the rested bonus all those years ago with World of Warcraft. Players hated having an XP penalty when you play for too long, but they loved getting an XP bonus at the start of a new session, even though under the hood Blizzard had tweaked the XP values so that the end result was identical. In my proposed solution, the cost of the various rewards remains the same. The value of selling resources you've gathered remains the same. The investment you've put in is still valid. It's just marginally easier for new players. Plus, the longer the system is in place, the more it would build up, theoretically self-balancing the oldest content to be the quickest to grind start to finish by virtue of the community having built up the largest buffs on those syndicates. So, with all these supposed benefits, what are the drawbacks? Well, obviously, it'll take time and resources to implement such a system, way more than a simple cost reduction would. I don't think it would be prohibitively time-consuming to implement, but everything takes time, and this would be a pain in the butt to test. Also, this does make explaining the syndicate system and rendering it in the UI a little more complicated. Not that that has ever stopped Warframe from doing anything. And of course, are some people still going to be mad about this? Yeah, for sure. There's no way to completely avoid the "back in my day" mentality, but overall, I think this approach would sit well with the community. A lot better than, oh, we dropped the grind by 50% in the patch notes. It feeds into the mentality of we all live together, and helps to balance the contradictory needs of the two ends of the player base spectrum. Really, in a weird way, it's a variant of the buff everything else instead of nerfing concept. Personally, I think that's a reductive approach to game design, but it's one that's quite popular on forums and the like. It's easier to sell a change when adding a positive instead of subtracting a negative. But what do you think? What drawbacks am I overlooking? What feathers might this ruffle that I have not considered? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye!